The letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between bills and junk mail like it wasn't about to blow my entire life apart. My mother's familiar handwriting jumped out at me immediately, which was impossible, since she'd been dead for 3 months. My name is Harper, and until that moment, I thought I had my life figured out. Good job, decent marriage, and enough stability to keep the existential dread at bay most days. But there I stood in my kitchen, holding an envelope that shouldn't exist, while my husband Noah's voice drifted in from the living room as he took another important call about potential job prospects. "This has to be old mail," I muttered, turning the envelope over. The postmark was from last week. My hands started shaking as I slid my finger under the flap. The sound of Noah's footsteps made me shove the letter into my jacket pocket. He appeared in the doorway, running a hand through his dark hair, a nervous tell I'd picked up on years ago. "Hey, babe. Any word from that consulting firm?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "They're still reviewing candidates." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Listen, I need to borrow some money from your personal account. Mom and Dad are having trouble with their mortgage again." The letter seemed to burn against my ribs through the pocket. "Noah, we talked about this. We're already stretched thin covering both our expenses since you lost your job." "It's just temporary," he insisted, that familiar defensive edge creeping into his voice. "They helped us out when we first got married, remember?" I bit back what I really wanted to say. 3 months of temporary support was already straining our savings, but pointing that out would just lead to another argument about family loyalty and obligation, usually ending with me feeling like the villain for suggesting his parents figure out their own finances. "I'll think about it," I said instead, which was our code for "not really, but I don't want to fight right now." As soon as Noah left for another networking meeting at his favorite bar, I pulled out the letter with trembling fingers and began to read. "My dearest Harper, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and the timing is critical. I've arranged for this letter to be delivered 3 months after my death because I needed to be certain about something first. Check the loose floorboard in my old studio, the one by the window where you used to sit and watch me paint. What you'll find there will explain everything. But sweetheart, be careful who you trust with this information. Sometimes the people closest to us have the most to gain from our silence. All my love, Mom." I sank into a kitchen chair, my mind racing. Mom's house, my childhood home, was sitting empty while I figured out what to do with it. Or at least it was supposed to be empty. But last week, I'd driven by and noticed lights on inside. I'd assumed it was just my imagination or maybe a timer I'd forgotten about. My phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "Having dinner with Mom and Dad. Don't wait up." I grabbed my keys before I could talk myself out of it. The drive to Mom's house took 20 minutes, each one filled with questions. What did she hide? Why wait 3 months? And why did her warning about trust make my stomach twist with dread? As I pulled up to the curb, my headlights swept across the front of the house and caught movement behind the living room curtains. Someone was definitely inside. I killed the engine and sat there, heart pounding, as a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Noah's car. The same one he was supposed to be taking to his parents' house across town. The porch light clicked on, and through the window, I saw my mother-in-law Evelyn's face, clear as day, inside my mother's house. I didn't confront them that night. Instead, I drove home in a daze, my mother's letter burning a hole in my pocket and questions burning holes in my mind. The next morning, I got ready for work like everything was normal, like I hadn't caught my husband and his mother sneaking around my dead mother's house. The promotion announcement came during the morning meeting. My boss beamed as she told everyone I'd be taking over as head of financial operations. Under different circumstances, this would have been the highlight of my year. Now it felt like one more match being tossed onto an already smoldering pile of kindling. Noah was waiting at home when I got back, sprawled on the couch with his laptop. "How was work?" he asked, not looking up. "I got the promotion." I kept my voice neutral, watching his reaction. His fingers stopped typing. "Oh." Just that one syllable, heavy with something that wasn't quite congratulations. "Have you told Mom and Dad yet?" "Why would I tell your parents before telling you?" He finally met my eyes. "They're coming over for dinner tonight. I thought we could celebrate as a family." My stomach clenched. You invited them without asking me? Come on, Harper. They're just trying to be supportive. 2 hours later, I was setting the table while Evelyn hovered in my kitchen, rearranging my spice rack to make more sense. Every time I looked at her, I remembered her silhouette in my mother's window. Noah tells us you got a promotion, Walter said from his seat at the head of my table, a spot he always claimed without asking. That's quite a responsibility. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of pressure? I've been doing most of the work already, I replied, placing down the last fork with perhaps more force than necessary. The title just makes it official. Evelyn turned from the spice rack. But surely with Noah between positions right now, you'll want to focus more on supporting him? A wife's primary duty is to her husband, after all. I caught Noah's slight wince. He opened his mouth, probably to change the subject, but I was done playing nice. Actually, I said, my primary duty is to my career, which is currently supporting this entire household. The room went silent. Walter's face darkened, and Evelyn pressed her hand to her chest like I'd physically struck her. Harper, Noah warned quietly. No, let's talk about it. I continued, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Let's talk about how I'm paying our mortgage, our bills, and somehow still finding money to help with your parents' expenses. Let's talk about why you were at my mother's house last night when you told me you were having dinner with them. The color drained from Noah's face. Evelyn's hand dropped from her chest, and her expression shifted from shocked to calculated. We were simply checking on the property, she said smoothly. As family, we feel responsible for helping maintain it while you're dealing with your grief. That's interesting, I replied, considering I never gave anyone permission to enter the house. Noah has a key, Walter cut in. And as your husband, as my husband, he has no legal right to that property. It's not in his name. Noah stood up suddenly. Can we discuss this later? In private. Why? I challenged. So, you can come up with better excuses? You're being hysterical, Evelyn said, her voice dripping with concern that didn't reach her eyes. This is exactly why we worry about you taking on too much responsibility. The stress is clearly affecting your judgment. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that seemed to startle everyone, including myself. My judgment is just fine. In fact, it's never been clearer. I pulled my mother's letter from my pocket and placed it on the table. Would anyone like to explain why my dead mother felt the need to warn me about trusting the people closest to me? The silence that followed was deafening. Noah stared at the letter like it was a snake about to strike. But it was Evelyn's reaction that confirmed my suspicions, the flash of recognition in her eyes before she could hide it. What exactly did you find in my mother's studio? I asked quietly. And how long have you been looking for it? After the disastrous dinner, I spent hours combing through our bank statements. The truth revealed itself in a series of small withdrawals, each one a paper cut to my trust in Noah. He'd been moving money to his parents' account for months, thousands of dollars hidden behind vague descriptions like household expenses and maintenance fees. The next morning, I found Noah in the kitchen, making coffee like it was any other day. The sight of him standing there, so casual, made my blood boil. Want to explain these transfers? I slid the printed statements across the counter. He glanced at them, then away. I was going to tell you.
When?
After you'd emptied our savings. They needed help with their mortgage, he said, his voice taking on that defensive tone I'd grown to hate. Dad's pension isn't covering everything since the market crashed. So, you decided to secretly drain our account instead of having an adult conversation about it? Because I knew you'd react like this. He slammed his coffee mug down. You don't understand what it's like having parents who actually need you. Your mom left you that house, plus whatever she hid in that studio. What exactly did your mother find there? I cut in, watching his face carefully. He froze for a split second, long enough to confirm he knew something. Nothing. We were just cleaning. Cleaning what? The floorboards. The moment I said it, his eyes widened slightly. That's it, isn't it? You found my mom's letter somehow. You knew about the loose floorboard. Harper, did you find what she hid there? Is that why you've all been sneaking around my house? Instead of answering, he pulled out his phone. I watched in disbelief as he typed out a message. Are you texting your mother right now? She needs to be part of this conversation. I grabbed my car keys. No, she really doesn't. Where are you going? To my mother's house. And if I find your parents there again, they have nowhere else to go. The words exploded out of him. The bank foreclosed on their house 2 months ago. They've been staying at Mom's place because… My mother's house, I corrected coldly. And what exactly is Mom's place? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that used to make me want to comfort him. Now, it just looked manipulative. Mom says she and your mother had an arrangement. Something about shared ownership or… I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. My mother would never agree to that. She didn't even like Evelyn. That's not true. They were close. Mom has proof. What proof? But he was already texting again, probably warning them I was coming. I left him standing there, his excuses following me out the door. The drive to my mother's house felt different this time. Every memory of the past few months shifted, taking on new meaning. Noah's late-night networking meetings. The way Evelyn had pushed to help organize Mom's belongings after the funeral. The mysterious disappearance of some of Mom's paintings. When I pulled up to the house, Evelyn was waiting on the porch like she owned the place. Maybe in her mind, she did. Harper, dear, she called out, all sugary concern. Noah said you were upset. Let's talk about this rationally. I walked past her into the house, my house, and headed straight for the studio. The room still smelled like oil paints and turpentine, but something was off. The furniture had been rearranged, and Mom's easel was missing. I knelt by the window, running my fingers along the floorboards. The loose one was gone, replaced with a new board that didn't quite match the others. We had to fix it, Evelyn said from the doorway. It was a safety hazard. But don't worry, we kept everything we found. Your mother's letter mentioned some important documents. I stood up slowly, fury burning through my veins. What documents? The deed to the house, of course, and the agreement she and I made about shared ownership. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You understand now why we had to take matters into our own hands. We're family, after all. I spent that night in a hotel, ignoring Noah's calls and trying to make sense of Evelyn's claims. The next morning, I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called my mother's lawyer, Marcus. I was wondering when you'd contact me, he said, his voice grave. I've been trying to reach you about some concerning activity with your mother's accounts. My stomach dropped. What kind of activity? Someone's been attempting to access her safety deposit box using an old power of attorney document. The bank flagged it as suspicious since the document appeared to be dated after your mother's death. I gripped my phone tighter. Let me guess, Evelyn Prescott? You know about this? I'm learning more every day. I took a deep breath. Marcus, I need to know, did my mother ever make any agreement about shared ownership of the house with Evelyn? Absolutely not. His voice sharpened. In fact, your mother specifically amended her will 3 months before her death to ensure the house would be solely yours. She was quite insistent about keeping the Prescotts away from her property. I closed my eyes, remembering Mom's letter. Sometimes the people closest to us have the most to gain from our silence. Harper, Marcus continued, there's something else. Your mother left specific instructions about the contents of her studio. She said you'd know where to look. The floorboard's been replaced. Whatever was there is gone. Then we have a serious problem. Those documents weren't just about the house. Before he could explain further, my phone buzzed with a text from Noah. Coming to the hotel. We need to talk. Found something you should see. I have to go, I told Marcus. But I need copies of everything. The will, the amendments, all of it. I'll send them right over. And Harper, be careful. Your mother was worried about. About what? About how far certain people would go to protect their interests. 20 minutes later, Noah knocked on my hotel room door. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept all night. Before you say anything, he started, pulling out a folder. You need to see these. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, of my mother and Evelyn together. shopping, having lunch, looking like close friends. The most recent ones were dated just weeks before Mom died. See? Noah's voice was almost pleading. They were friends. Mom wasn't lying about that. I picked up one photo, studying it carefully. These are fake.
What?
No, they're. My mother broke her wrist 6 months before she died. She wore a brace for weeks. I held up the supposedly recent photo. No brace. And her hair was different by then. These are old photos, probably from years ago, digitally dated to look recent. Noah's face fell, but Mom said, "Your mother is trying to steal my house, Noah. She forged documents, broke in, and took whatever my mom left in that studio. And you've been helping her." They needed somewhere to live. The foreclosure. Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop lying. I talked to Marcus. Mom specifically changed her will to keep your family away from the house. She knew something like this would happen. Harper, please. They're still my parents. We can figure something out.
We.
I laughed bitterly. There is no we anymore. You chose your side the moment you started emptying our accounts behind my back. His expression hardened.
Fine.
Then you should know Mom found documents in the studio. Legal papers that prove she has a claim to the house. If you force this, it'll get ugly. It's already ugly. I opened the door. Tell your mother she has 24 hours to get out of my house before I file charges for breaking and entering, theft, and fraud. You wouldn't. I met his eyes. Try me. After he left, I checked my email. Marcus had sent the will documents, along with a cryptic message. Found something interesting in your mother's old financial records. Call me ASAP. My phone buzzed again, another text from Noah. Mom says to remember what happened to the paintings. I froze, suddenly understanding. The missing artwork, the forged documents, the desperate attempts to access Mom's safety deposit box. This wasn't just about the house. This was about what my mother had hidden and what the Prescotts would do to get it. Marcus's office was a maze of filing cabinets and leather-bound books. But what caught my attention was the painting on his wall, one of my mother's landscapes that had gone missing from her studio. Evelyn sold it to me last week, he said, following my gaze. Said she was handling the estate sale. I knew something wasn't right. I sank into the chair across from his desk. What did you find in the financial records? He pulled out a thick folder. Your mother was investigating Walter Prescott's old engineering firm. Specifically, their involvement in a series of construction projects that collapsed 10 years ago. 3 people died. My hands started shaking. What does that have to do with my mother? She was an artist, yes, but she also did forensic accounting work. She found evidence of fraudulent inspections, falsified safety reports, all signed off by Walter. The pieces started falling into place. That's what she hid in the studio. Proof of their corruption. And now they're desperate to find it. Marcus leaned forward. The statute of limitations on criminal charges has expired, but civil suits? Those could still bankrupt them. My phone buzzed. Noah again. We need to talk. Found a solution everyone can live with. They're trying to make a deal, I said. Marcus's expression darkened. Be careful. People who've covered up deaths once won't hesitate to do it again. I stood up. I need copies of everything. Already done. But Harper, there's more. Your mother's safety deposit box? It doesn't contain documents. It contains a key to a storage unit. Before I could respond, another text came through. This time from an unknown number. Your mother should have minded her own business. Like mother, like daughter? I showed Marcus the message. His face went pale. Your mother's death wasn't investigated thoroughly, he said quietly. The medical examiner ruled it natural causes, but what? She left me a letter too. Said if anything happened to her, I should look closer at her medication. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of his desk, remembering how often Evelyn had helped during Mom's final weeks, organizing her pills, bringing her food. My phone rang. Noah again. This time I answered. Come home, he said. Mom has a proposition. We can fix this. Fix what? The fraud? The theft? Or my mother's murder? There was a long pause. What are you talking about? Ask your parents about the construction projects. Ask them what really happened to my mother. Harper, you're not thinking clearly. Just come home. We can work this out as a family. Family? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysteria. Your family killed my mother. That's a serious accusation. A new voice said, Evelyn listening in. Be very careful about what you say next, dear. Grief can make people imagine terrible things. I thought about Mom's letter, her warning about trust, her final weeks of illness. 24 hours, I said. Get out of my house and return everything you took, or I'm going to the police with everything I have. You have nothing, Evelyn snapped, dropping her sweet facade. And if you're smart, you'll keep it that way. Some accidents are easier to arrange than others. The line went dead. I looked at Marcus, my hands still shaking but my mind suddenly clear. I need a forensic team at the house, I said. And I need to access that storage unit before they do. They'll be watching you. Let them. I pulled out my mother's letter, reading it again. Sometimes the people closest to us have the most to gain from our silence. I'm done being quiet. As I left his office, my phone buzzed one last time. Noah, don't make me choose between you and my family. I typed back 4 words. You already did.
Goodbye.
Then I turned off my phone and headed for the storage facility. It was time to finish what my mother started. The storage unit key felt heavy in my pocket as I pulled up to my mother's house. Something was wrong. The front door stood slightly open, and Noah's car wasn't the only one in the driveway. Walter's truck loomed like a threat. I called Marcus. They're here. The police are on their way. Don't go inside. But through the window, I could see them ransacking Mom's studio. Evelyn was pulling books from shelves while Walter attacked the walls with a hammer, looking for hidden compartments. And Noah was going through Mom's remaining paintings with a box cutter. I was through the door before I could stop myself. Get away from those. They all froze. Noah dropped the box cutter, looking guilty. But Walter and Evelyn's expressions were different, calculated, dangerous. Harper, Evelyn said smoothly. We were just doing some renovations. By destroying my mother's art? My voice shook. Or are you looking for more evidence of Walter's negligence? How many people died because of those falsified reports? Walter stepped forward, his face dark. You don't know what you're talking about. 3 families lost people they loved because you cut corners. And when my mother figured it out, she should have kept her mouth shut. Evelyn snapped. Just like you should. Noah moved between us. Everyone needs to calm down. Harper, we can work this out. Just tell us what's in the storage unit. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. You followed me to Marcus's office. We had to, he said, almost pleading. You're not thinking clearly. This could ruin everyone's lives. Your father already ruined lives. And your mother. I turned to Evelyn, rage burning through my fear. What did you put in her medication? How long did you plan it? Careful, dear. Evelyn's voice turned ice cold. Accusations like that could be dangerous. Grief can make people unstable. Accidents happen. Is that what happened to my mother? An accident. Walter stepped closer. Where's the storage unit key? The police are on their way. No, they're not, Noah said quietly. I saw you make that call. You were bluffing. The walls seemed to close in. I backed toward the door, but Walter was faster. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in painfully. The key, he demanded.
Now.
Let her go, Noah said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. Stay out of this, Walter snapped. You've done enough damage, letting her run wild like this. I twisted free, but Evelyn was behind me, blocking the exit. Think about Noah, she said. Do you really want to destroy his family? Just give us the key, and this can all go away. Like my mother went away? Something shifted in her eyes, not guilt, but satisfaction. She made her choice, just like you're making yours. I reached into my pocket, felt the key's metal edges. One move could end this. Give them what they wanted, walk away, pretend none of this happened. Save what was left of my marriage, my safety, my life. But I saw my mother's paintings in shreds on the floor. saw the hammer holes in her studio walls, remembered her final weeks, growing weaker while Evelyn helped with her medication. I pulled out my phone instead of the key. "What are you doing?" Walter demanded, sending evidence to every news outlet in the state. My fingers flew over the screen. "Mom's findings, Marcus's investigation, proof of your fraud." Walter lunged. The phone went flying. I heard it crack against the wall as his hands closed around my throat. "Dad, stop." Noah's shout seemed far away. "Get the key," Walter growled. Evelyn's hands were in my pockets as I struggled to breathe. She pulled out the key with a triumphant cry. Walter released me. I collapsed, gasping, as they rushed out. The sound of car engines starting filled the air. Noah stood frozen, looking between me and the door. "Help me," I wheezed. He took a step back. "I'm sorry." Then he was gone too, leaving me alone in my mother's ruined studio, surrounded by the wreckage of everything I'd believed in. My phone lay shattered nearby, the evidence unsent. And somewhere across town, they were heading for a storage unit that contained nothing but empty boxes, because my mother had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemies think they've won. The real evidence was somewhere else entirely. And now I knew exactly what I had to do with it. The storage unit was empty, just as I'd planned. But I wasn't at the police station, where they'd expect me to go next. Instead, I stood in the gallery where my mother had held her last show, watching through the windows as Noah's car pulled up outside. They'd figured out soon enough. Mom's real evidence wasn't in a storage unit or hidden under floorboards. It was hanging right here, hidden in plain sight. Evelyn burst through the door first, her face flushed with rage. "Where is it?" "Look around," I said, gesturing to the paintings on the walls. Mom always said art reveals truth if you know how to look. Walter stormed in behind her, followed by Noah. "Stop playing games." "Not playing." I walked to the largest painting, the one Mom had finished just before she died. Did you ever wonder why she insisted this piece stay in the gallery? Why she made sure it was properly insured? They stared at the canvas, a seemingly abstract swirl of colors and shapes. But hidden within the chaos were documents, photographs, numbers. Mom had turned Walter's fraud into art, embedding the evidence in layers of paint and texture. "That's nothing but colors," Evelyn scoffed, but her voice shook. "The insurance company's forensic team disagrees. They've already documented everything. And the original documents?" I smiled. "Currently being reviewed by the district attorney." Walter lunged for the painting. I stepped between them. "Touch it," and the alarm triggers. "Police response time is 3 minutes." "You're bluffing," Noah said. "Like you were bluffing about the police before." "Check your phone." The story's already breaking. They all pulled out their phones. I watched their faces as they saw the headlines. "Fatal construction collapse. New evidence reveals cover-up." "You've destroyed this family," Evelyn hissed.
No.
"You did that when you killed my mother." "You can't prove that," she said, but her hands were shaking. "Actually, I can." Mom documented her symptoms, had her blood tested privately. The results were part of what she hid in the studio, until you found them. That's why you rushed to get rid of her paintings, wasn't it? Afraid she'd hidden more evidence in her art. Walter grabbed Evelyn's arm. "We need to go. Now." "Running won't help," I said. "The police are already." "Shut up." Walter spun toward me, his control finally snapping. "You think you're so clever? Your mother thought the same thing. Right until the end." Noah stepped between us. "Dad, stop." "Move," Walter growled.
No.
Noah's voice was quiet but firm. "I've helped cover up enough." Evelyn's face contorted. "After everything we've done for you. You killed her mother." Noah's words cut through the air like glass. "You've been bleeding us dry for months. And now I find out about the construction deaths? When does it end?" "It ends now," I said, as police sirens filled the air. "The gallery's surrounded. Has been since you walked in." Walter made one last grab for the painting. Noah caught his arm, wrestling him back as officers flooded through the doors. I watched them lead Walter and Evelyn away in handcuffs, their rights being read over Evelyn's protests and Walter's threats. Noah stood apart, looking lost. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "About your mom. About any of it. I should have, but you didn't want to know," I finished. "That's why we're done. Harper. The divorce papers are with my lawyer, along with evidence of the money you took from our accounts." I turned away from his stricken face. Some things can't be fixed. As the gallery cleared out, I stood alone before my mother's final painting. Up close, you could see the truth hidden in every brushstroke, not just the evidence of Walter's crimes, but a message from Mom herself, worked into the pattern. The truth always comes to light. She'd known they'd kill her for discovering their secret, but she'd made sure the truth wouldn't die with her. She'd turned it into art, knowing I'd understand eventually. I touched the canvas gently. "I get it now, Mom. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about making sure they can't destroy the truth." Behind me, the gallery doors closed on the sound of sirens, marking the end of one story and the beginning of another. 6 months after the arrests, I stood in my mother's studio, finally ready to repair the damage. The walls had been patched, but I'd left her paintings untouched, their torn edges a reminder of how quickly things can unravel. The trial was set for spring. Walter and Evelyn had pleaded not guilty, but the evidence Mom had woven into her art was damning. 3 families from the construction collapse had joined the civil suit, their years of silence finally broken. I picked up a torn canvas, running my fingers along its jagged edge. The doorbell rang. Noah stood on the porch, looking older somehow. "The divorce papers are signed. You could have mailed them. I wanted to return this." He held out a small key, the one to Mom's house. "And to tell you I'm testifying against them." The DA offered a deal. I took the key without touching his hand. "Why now?" "Because your mother deserved better. You deserved better." He shifted uncomfortably. "They found more evidence in Dad's old files. Other projects, other cover-ups." "How many?" "Too many." He turned to leave, then stopped. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger." I watched him walk away for the last time, feeling nothing but a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. Back in the studio, I noticed something odd about the newly patched wall, a slight discoloration near the baseboard. Kneeling down, I pressed against it. A small panel popped open. Inside was a leather-bound journal and another letter in Mom's handwriting. "My dearest Harper, if you're reading this, you've already learned the hard truth about strength, that it often comes from standing alone." The journal contains everything I couldn't put into my paintings. But more importantly, it contains the story of how I learned to stand up for myself. You'll find the deed to the gallery in here too. I bought it years ago under a different name. It's yours now. The Prescotts never knew about it. Some secrets are meant to protect, not harm. Remember, art isn't just about beauty. Sometimes it's about showing the world what others try to hide. All my love, Mom. I opened the journal, recognizing the names of other construction projects, other families who'd lost loved ones. Mom hadn't just documented Walter's crimes. She created a record of every voice that had been silenced. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. 3 more families have come forward. You were right about the pattern. I looked around the studio, at the torn paintings, the patched walls, the hidden panel that had protected truth when everything else fell apart. Then I pulled out my laptop and started typing. My name is Harper Calloway, and this is a story about justice. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but the kind that comes from refusing to stay silent. The words flowed easily now, telling not just my story or my mother's, but all the stories that had been buried under years of manipulation and fear. The manuscript would take months to complete, but I had time. The truth had waited this long. It deserved to be told right. Later that evening, I hung one of Mom's restored paintings in the gallery, not the one that had exposed Walter's crimes, but a smaller piece I'd never fully understood before. It showed a woman standing alone in a storm, her face turned toward the light breaking through clouds. The plaque beneath it read, "Strength by Clara Calloway." As I locked up the gallery, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. You're just like your mother. This isn't over. I smiled, thinking of the journal in my bag, the manuscript on my laptop, and all the stories yet to be told. No, I whispered to the empty gallery. It's just beginning. Because Mom was right, some secrets protect, others destroy. The trick is knowing which ones to keep, and which ones need to be transformed into art for the whole world to see. I turned off the lights, leaving the painting of the woman in the storm glowing softly in the darkness. Her face still turned toward the breaking light.